I'd like to say a few words about Cathy. Cathy is a very intelligent and talented and charming person. She is a First Nations member of Acadia First Nation. She grew up on the Wildcat Reserve. I'll skip over a few years. She went to St. Thomas University and got a degree in Aboriginal Studies and criminology. What's with that?
I don't know.
and then she spent about 10 years as a cultural interpreter at Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site of Canada, where she interpreted the Mi'kmaq culture to the visitors. And this is where we met. 10 years ago, Kejimkujik National Park became a dark sky preserve, and that's when I met Cathy and started working together on a very sort of, mild level from year to year. A couple of years ago, she came to me with a request to work on something special. In the words of the Chinese proverb, it was the spark that lit the prairie fire. That project became something that we never anticipated. And we fulfilled the original requirement easily enough, but it's gone much beyond that. And that's what we want to share with you tonight. Some of you have seen some of this content, but we're trying to give an abbreviated version, and we're not trying to impart knowledge to you tonight. I think, Cathy, we agreed that we were going to try to inspire people a bit more rather than to tell them about stuff, because I think everybody's up to here with facts right now. So having said that, Cathy, would you open with your reading?
I feel like with all those kind words, I should get an award or something. Maybe I'll take yours.
I left it behind.
I am honored to be here this evening. I want to thank all of you who are the reason that I'm here tonight. It is a true honor. My father thinks I'm a celebrity now because I've been invited to this event. So, and after the way that the women of the shore and I were treated, we do feel like celebrities. We were even put in a green room beforehand, so we're spoiled. I am going to begin with a reading. I've presented a few times with Dave, and each time I do, I always read something. The last time I read, I was in a rocking chair reading to the...
Minus Astronomical.
Yes. It was a lovely evening. I felt it was the most juvenile thing, but everybody loved it. And they promised me a rocking chair this evening. I don't see one. But that's okay. So this reading is called We Are the Birds of Fire. We are the birds of fire. We are the stars which sing. We sing with our lights. We are the birds of fire. We fly over the sky. We make a road for spirits. Among us are 3 hunters who chase a bear. There never was a time when they were not hunting. We look down on the mountains. This is the song of the stars. You can applaud if you want. It's okay. I like applause.
Okay.
Two-eyed seeing. First of all, I want to pull it out. Oh, sorry. Lower? Okay. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So you have to retake all those pictures, by the way. So I want to welcome you to Mi'kmaq territory. And as Dave mentioned, we've known each other for a very long time. I am probably older than what you think. I'm not going to tell you my age, though. But we've known each other for a good while. And a few years ago, actually 2 years ago, I think it was it Dave? 2 years ago? You're not going to talk? Okay, yes, yeah.
You're doing such a good job.
Oh, okay. So 2 years ago, Judy Bootlier from Acadia First Nation, she came to me and she said, I am doing a Hunter's Moon celebration, and I would like for you to do a program in the evening. And I said, okay, Judy, I can do that for you. And she said, and I want you to point out constellations of the legend that you're going to tell. And I'm like, okay, Judy, I can't do that for you. I have always loved the sky. And in my loving of the night sky, I decided that the best thing for me to do was to gather a lot of books and read and read and read. And none of it made any sense to me whatsoever. And then she made me really nervous when she asked me if I would point out the constellations. And so I knew that the only thing I could do was to ask Dave to help me, because he has helped me in programs before. And I knew I really hit rock bottom when not when I asked Dave to be my partner. But when I'm getting comfortable up here now.
I didn't hear that part before.
When the last book that I purchased was Astronomy for Dummies, I knew I had, and still that book was making no sense to me. So I called up Dave and I said, Dave, you need to help me out with this. And by the way, they would also like you to do a conference talk. And Dave said, okay, I can help you, but I would like for you to do the talk with me. And I said, I can't even make sense out of Astronomy for Dummies, and you want me to do a talk with you. And he had full confidence in my abilities, and that started the partnership of Dave and Cathy. And what then followed was many conversations, 7, 8 hours. I know it's hard to believe Dave and I could talk for 7 or 8 hours at a time. But there was lots of questions that needed to be asked. Him cultural questions and me astronomy questions. So we made a rule right from the beginning, that there were no, and I don't want to say the S word, there were no non-intelligent questions. And we could be free and open to ask whatever we wanted to. And so that is exactly what we did. And it still was making, Dave spent a lot of time with me. I was trying to still put it all together. And it wasn't until, the next slide, Dave.
Okay.
Is that you who clicks the little button?
It could be.
Oh, can you click the button? Okay, there we go.
There we go.
I'll put down my script now. Till I saw this, that it made perfect sense for me. And one of the things that Dave and I were going to talk about at the conference with Acadia First Nation was the Mi'kmaq moons, the 12 Mi'kmaq moons. And so when I saw this, I immediately was drawn to the notion of taking the phases of the moon and what's going on in nature and using that to tell a passage of time like my ancestors did. And I became immediately excited about this. So excited that as it began to play out, it became so real to me and it made so much sense. And I want to start with the snow blinding moon. And I was driving home from work, February, was it, Dave? Mm-hmm. And I called, did I call you or did you call me?
You called me.
Oh, I called you. I called you to talk about the project. I was on Bluetooth, don't worry. And I said to Dave, I said, hold on. I said, I'm looking for my sunglasses. I can't see a bleep. Did I use a bad word?
No.
Oh, okay, good. A bleeping thing. And he said, well, Cathy, he said, do you know what time it is? What moon time we're in? And I said, of course I do. I'm the Mi'kmaq person in this partnership. I know what moon time it is. I said, it's the snow blinding moon. And then I said, oh my God, it's the snow blinding moon. And I can't see in the glare from the sun on the snow. And oh my God. And do you remember that moment, Dave?
I do.
You do? Like it was yesterday.
I got on to eBay and ordered you a set of sunglasses.
It was so exciting. And so then we started to follow it through. And the maple moon time. Maple is my favorite time of year, the maple syrup time. And so during that moon time, Dave and I presented at White Point a maple moon celebration. And then we get into the frog croaking moon. So this is a really exciting time, and it was a really exciting time for me because my niece, my 7-year-old niece, and this is why I'm so glad to see some of our little people in the audience, because she started to play this out with me as well, my 7-year-old niece Halley. And so she called me up one night and she said, Auntie, she said, have you heard the peepers outside? And I said, Holly, I have heard the peepers. And I said, Holly, do you know what moon time we're in? And she said, no, but I bet you it has something to do with the peepers. I said, you're absolutely right. I said, it's the frog croaking moon time. And one other thing, the next moon time with her too, we were at my kitchen table and she was looking out and she said, Auntie, what is happening to those trees? And I said, Holly, what is happening to the trees? She said, they have little buds on them. I said, yes, do you know what moon time we're in? She said, no, but I bet you it has something to do with the trees. I said, it does have something to do with the trees, Holly. I said, this is the leaf budding moon time. So for me, am I running out of time?
You're doing good.
Oh, am I doing good? Okay. I told Dave, keep me on a schedule. I can talk forever. For me, this new way of seeing things is really exciting because no longer do I flip the pages of a calendar, and no longer is a passage of time a big deal for me. Like, oh, it's December, and so Christmas is coming, and that's a really crazy time. Or, oh no, it's October, and I'm going to have a birthday, and I'm going to get a year older, and I don't want to turn 25 again. Again. This is a way of looking at time where I can look forward to something beautiful happening the next moon time. The berries will be ripe. We can go and we can pick strawberries and blueberries with our families. Or the maple sap is about to run and we can make maple syrup. Or the animals are getting nice and big and ready for hunting, which means beautiful moccasins and food. So that's how I look at a passage of time now. And the good thing about this, using this to tell a passage of time, is that it goes in a circle, so there is no beginning and end. So we never, from this day forward, we never have to get older. We can stay the age that we are and keep going in that circle. And I can be 25 forever.
Are we ready to move on? Are you done?
Yes, are we ready to move on? I think so.
That's me now.
That's you, okay. I guess I will let you, since you won the big award.
Cathy, I didn't win the biggest award.
Oh, was that the president?
Although I did get the biggest door prize. Kathy, you left out a little bit.
Oh, I
That's
did.
Okay. Yeah,
What did I leave out?
I'll pinch it.
Okay.
So one of the conversations that when Cathy was discovering this way of looking at the passage of time and the Mi'kmaq names of the moons, I made an offhand comment to you one day, and I said, well, yeah, there's the 12
Oh
moon
my goodness,
times.
that's the biggest part of the presentation. I better go back and.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. We're a team. So the thing was that poster with the 12 moon times was produced by Cape Breton University in 2008 and basically what it does is it does what Cathy has done. It associates events in nature to the different moon times through the year. And there's an interesting footnote to that poster that doesn't appear on our slide. If you look at, it's a tiny little footnote in 6-point font, and it said, there were times when the Mi'kmaq used the 13th moon to complete the cycle. Remember that?
Yeah, but the story I tell is, maybe I should tell it, because the way I tell it's really good. Okay, so, and so we saw the 12 moons, and I said, oh, we've got it, Dave. We've got it. We've got our model. We can go to Judy. We can do the presentation. It's done. And he said to me, well, what about the 13th moon? There are times when there's years when there's a 13th moon. And I said, what? See, that's the funny part. See, they would have missed that. And then...
I must say I don't tell it as well as you.
Okay, that's all I have to say. That's good.
So this two-eyed seeing thing, it requires two different perspectives, two different views of the same thing. And this is what we're trying to convey here. Cathy has acquired this traditional knowledge, and because she's a native person, she just grew up in that culture, and she appreciates that very quickly. It took a lot for me to learn that. I think she has told you that she has learned about the moon and the cycles of the moon and more about astronomy from this project. And I have to say that this wasn't a one-way street. You don't get the idea that all of the information was going from me to her, because I had a lot of questions too. I'm very much a scientist. I deal in numbers and tables and formulas and things that are in black and white. And through this project, I found it very transformational, because through working on this project and trying to understand the traditional teachings, I understood that you could have levels of gray in between black and white. Because I would read something and I'd say, Cathy, this can't be. I said, I've read this, and there's this teaching, and I've read this over here, and they don't agree. And at least one of these people has to be wrong. This is my attitude. Like, this can't. And Cathy said, no, they're just teachings, Dave. They're teachings. You read them, you accept them, you think about them, but you don't look at them that way. And that's one thing that I learned from Cathy about this kind of knowledge, is that you don't see things in black and white. You have to see the levels of gray in them and keep everything on the table while you're thinking about it. And that has enhanced and enriched my view of all of this. But the other thing that Cathy says to me often to remind me, because sometimes I get all, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to become like her, and which is kind of impossible, really. Yeah. But often Cathy stops me and says, Dave, don't forget who you are, and be yourself.
Yes.
Don't forget who you are. And what she is telling me is that she's depending on me to provide this Western science side of the two-eyed seeing formula. So there's a role for both of us to play. And so she brings up the 13th moon. Now we have a very elaborate presentation which goes into this great detail, and we're not going to go into that tonight. But I've got a picture up behind me here which illustrates the dichotomy here. When you have a timekeeping system which depends on the actual appearance of the moon and how it cycles through the year, you can't map that into the 12 months of the year that we have on the calendar. And this is an age-old problem that has worldwide, and there's lots of ways to solve the problem. But see over here on the left-hand side of the diagram, the 12 moons of the Mi'kmaq, moon times of the Mi'kmaq calendar, as it were, are centered on the full moon. They start with the new moon, or perhaps the first crescent after the new moon. The full moon's always in the middle, and they end when the moon disappears. That is the only natural way of telling the time pre-European contact. The Mi'kmaq and all other native people in North America did not know about January, February, March, April, May, and all that. There's no knowledge of that. There was no need to map those names into those time periods. All you could do is follow the actual waning and waxing and waning of the moon. So with this example here in 2010, the first month of the year, which is the Tommy Cod moon, it roughly corresponds to January, but it doesn't exactly correspond. But it's sort of the first full moon following the one which is near the winter solstice. And you go around the cycle, and you have 12 moon times, each of which the moon is in the middle. And after you've come around 12, something really interesting happens. It doesn't close, because 12 synodic periods of the moon only adds up to 354 days. There's always 11 days short of a full 365-day year. So there's a deficit every year. So what happens is, when you go through if you continue on with the 12, they all start a little bit earlier. Everything sort of shifts 10 days earlier relative to the sun. The full moons are still in the middle, but it shifts. And then it shifts again. Then it shifts again. The problem is that after a while, the moon times don't match up with their names. If the names are associated with things that are going on in nature, like the spawning of the tomcod, the snow blinding, the running of the maple sap, the frogs, everything's all of a sudden, according to the moon time, the calendar, it's happening. The moon time is coming before the nature is ready for it. And so every 3 years or so, it would have been necessary to add another month to get everything back on schedule. And that was the crux of our project, and we haven't solved it yet. We feel that there has to be another moon time. We're not sure. We're pretty sure that it was done. We don't know what its name was, and we don't know where it was put. There's many different ways to do this. But that's the 13th moon issue. So over here, when the Europeans imposed their calendar on the native people 400 odd years ago, they imposed the Gregorian calendar, where the months are completely divorced from the phases of the moon. The moon, full moon, can appear just about any time in a month, the beginning, the end, the middle. There's no connection between the moon, the phases of the moon and the months. So we're completely divorced over here. And this pattern was imposed administratively on the native people in North America. And unfortunately, the traditional ways faded away because they weren't being taught. The native people had to conform to the calendar of the Europeans, and unfortunately, this knowledge has faded away. There are still some elders who have some of this knowledge, and we've been able to keep some of it, but we're afraid we've lost a lot of this. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of the Western rational sort of explanation of what's going on here. But what we would like to do is we would like to illustrate this two-eyed seeing process with a single item, a single story. And this is the story of the Moon Chief.
Okay. I'm honored to be able to tell this story tonight, especially to some young people in the audience who were looking forward to hearing, I think, from me a story from, at least I hope so, unless their dad lied to me. So they've been looking forward to hearing the story. So this is called Moon Chief. Is my mic okay? Okay. There's a lot of pictures being taken. I want to. And I am like this all the time. This wasn't the one glass of wine, no. Long ago, in the old times, there was an old man who could no longer go hunting. When he was young, he was a great hunter, and there was always food in his wigwam. Now that he was old and weary and could not hunt, he and his wife were often very hungry. One winter, they had very little to eat, and at last, one cold night, there was nothing left, not even an old moccasin that they could chew. He said to his wife, "Look out the door and see if Moonchief is out tonight." The old woman crawled to the door and opened the flap. "Yes, Moonchief is out tonight," she told her husband. The old man crept inside the wigwam and stood in the deep snow. He looked up at the moon. "My friend, how are you tonight? We in our wigwam are not very well. My wife and I have no food. In the old days, you remember, I was a great hunter. I killed the moose and the caribou and chased them through the deep snow. Now I am old and I cannot hunt. Will you help me, Moonchief? Send me a moose to my door." The old woman heard him talking. She called out to him, "What are you saying out there in the dark?" The old man told her, "I am asking Moonchief to send us a moose." Early the next morning, the old man went to the door and looked out. Lying in the snowbank beside the wigwam was a big moose. She called out to the old man, wake up, Moonchief has sent us a moose." The old man awoke, took out his bow and arrow, and killed the moose caught in the deep snow. So it was in the days, if a man asked Moonchief for things that he needed, believing that Moonchief would give them what he wanted, he would give what they asked for. To say, "I will try Moonchief, see if he won't send me a moose," will not do. Only if you feel you are bound to get what you ask for, will Moonchief send you whatever you need.
So, I read the Moonchief story because I was trying to devour everything I could about Mi'kmaq culture that was related to moons and calendars. And I read that story and I said, there's nothing in here for me. Next. And I went on and looked at some other things. I came back to it another time and I read it again. And I said, well, maybe I'll look at this again and what's going on. And I read it a few times and finally it dawned on me that this story was telling me something. There's many layers of meaning and many teachings in that story. Right?
Right.
There's many,
yes.
many things that you could. There's many things that you could take from that story, many different layers of meaning. But the thing that I took from that story was, what time of year was it? It was winter. The snow was deep. Food was scarce. The moose came to them. The Moonchief. They appealed to Moonchief. The moose came to them, and the moose was stuck in the snow, so that it could be slaughtered. And this is well known that this is a good time to hunt moose in the winter when the snow is deep, and the Mi'kmaq invented snowshoes so that they could travel quickly over deep snow when the game was stuck. So I started thinking about it. And I said, oh, this answers a question I had, because all the names of the moon times related to something on Earth, like the croaking frogs and the blinding sun, the snow. And I said, I could never figure out why the one around December was called the
Great Moon.
The Chief Moon, or Kichikus, or something like that.
The Great Moon.
Chief Moon. Didn't have anything to do with what was going on, and it was kind of an anomaly. But then it dawned on me that there was something special about the moon at this time of year, in the dead of winter, in the middle of winter. And so what I did is I went to my planetarium program, and this is why I chose 2010, because 2010 has a full moon on the winter solstice, and it's kind of typical of what's going on here. So what happens in the middle of winter, or in the winter solstice, the full moon is doing the opposite of the sun. The sun is low in the sky, the moon is high in the sky. The sun spends a short time in the sky, the moon spends a long time in the sky. The full moon is always doing the opposite of what the sun is doing. So in the winter solstice, the full moon near the winter solstice is going to be the highest moon in the sky, full moon, and it's going to stay in the sky for the longest time of all the full moons. And here in this case, it's 60 in the latitude of Keji, 63 degrees high in the sky, and it spends 16 hours in the sky. If you're going to call a full moon the chief moon, this is the one that you would call the chief moon, the one that's the highest and the longest in the sky. So it kind of all came together with me, the story and the astronomy. And that is why we chose this one little event to teach you the concept of two-eyed seeing. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So, I think we're done for now. It's time to wrap up.
I thought you were going to give me the last word.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You are going to get the last
Okay,
word. I couldn't possibly prevent you. Try. I was struggling on how to finish this talk. I didn't know what to say at the end. And I mentioned to Michelle Lane, she said, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to your talk tonight." I said, "Me too. I can hardly wait to hear what I'm going to say." Anyway, I had a brainwave. I don't know how many of you read the nice little brochure that was produced by the History Committee about Halifax Astronomy Heritage and History and Heritage that came in the pack, did it? Okay, well, I read it. And I apologize to Randall that I attributed it to Roy Bishop, but I read it, the first paragraph, and I said, "Holy cow." And I took a picture of it and sent it to Cathy. I said, "Look at this, what they wrote here." I found out it was Randall who wrote it. I think Roy had a large amount of input, but I think it's Randall's words. Certainly Roy agrees with it, I think. So I'm just, my summing up is going to be Randall's words, because to me, they capture it all. Here it goes. The First Nations inhabitants of the Maritimes can trace their presence in Mi'kmaq across millennia. They observe celestial bodies for daily timekeeping, calendrical reckoning, and navigation, tied to ritual and economic purposes. Mi'kmaq cosmology was transmitted through many layered narratives characterized by flexible symbols. Over 4 centuries of the colonial experience has taken its toll on that traditional knowledge, but efforts at recovery are ongoing. First Nations cultures were likely never static, and the present living tradition is free to make use of traditional teachings and the results of modern observational cosmology. I think that about sums it up from that side of the puzzle.
Yes.
And now you have the last word.
Oh, I have the last word. I just wanted to say thank you to my astronomy family, all of you in this room who have been so very kind to. Dave says I'm an observer now, so I'm going to say to this young observer, every time I look up, I see something new. And if there are some of you in this room who are not astronomers per se, but have a passion for what's above you, just look up. Just look up, and just don't be afraid to ask the questions, but don't get stuck in the books. That's what I did. And just look up and take it all in. And I will be the first to say that I even had my first experience with seeing moonshine, Earthshine.
I think the moonshine was earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Erskine for the first time. And that was, I said to Dave, I'm like, you must think I'm just such a non-intelligent person. And he always says to me, I love seeing, the things that I've been seeing for many years through your eyes, because it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. So I want to thank all of you, my lovely women of the shore who are with me this evening. And I want to say a special thank you to Christine, Dave's lovely wife, who has given me him for many hours on the phone. And I thank you for that, Christine. You've been very patient with us and a big supporter of our project.